I'm an assistant professor at Democritus University of Thrace, and Zoe Resta was my former master student, and now she's a special educator. So first I'll present the aim of the study, the theoretical background, then the present study, results, discussion, and conclusions. The aim of the study is twofold. First, to investigate different aspects of pragmatic abilities and to explore whether these abilities are linked. Of course, in high-functioning Greek-speaking individuals with ASD. So we know that autism is a developmental disorder which includes delays and deficits in language acquisition and major impairments in pragmatic aspects of language. And more specifically, we know that they fail to follow conversational rules, they violate Greece maxims, so be informative, be truthful, relevant, and clear. They go for the literal interpretation, they fail to distinguish between given and new information, and they have difficulties in telling narratives. And the main accounts that explain the language deficit in ASD are theory of mind, so taking the perspective of the other, executive functions as mentioned before, so they have issues in inhibitory control, shifting, attention, among others. And the third account, the weak central cohesion account, which actually shows that they focus on detail rather than the whole picture. And this account also explains deficits in only some, but not all, core cognitive processes that are observed. And it also may explain some of the pragmatic abilities that are more affected compared to others. So some studies have found that different pragmatic abilities, such as narratives, metaphor, inferences, are related to theory of mind. And some other studies that tested various pragmatic abilities and they did not indicate any association between them. And they suggest that it is more likely the deficits of the individual with ASD result from distinct deficits in core cognitive processes. So in the present study, we set 3 research questions. First, do pragmatic abilities of high-functioning children with ASD and typically developing children differ? Which account can better explain the deficits in high-functioning children with ASD? And third, are pragmatic abilities related or separable in the 2 groups? In the present study participated 34 individuals. 17 of them were high-functioning Greek-speaking individuals with ASD, 12 to 13 years old with mean of age 12.6 years, and 7 of them were females. So henceforth, I will call it ASD group. And 17 8 months typically developing individuals, same age range, but mean age 12.8 years. And 9 females of them, so the TD group. And the narrow age range aims to control for heterogeneity as much as possible. What about the material now? So we tested their pragmatic abilities by means of a subtest of the Diagnostic Evaluation of Language Variation, DELV, which was used and adapted by Terzi and colleagues and Marinis and colleagues, and this is a picture-based task. This subtest includes sections on communicative role-taking, narrative task, and a question-asking task. So the communicative role-taking task tests the ability to take the perspective of the other speaker and use an appropriate speech act in a particular communication situation. In the narrative task, they have to narrate a story, so to distinguish characteristics, produce clear temporal links, connect events, refer to mental states of characters as mentioned before in the previous presentation. And the question asking tests the ability to ask questions in order to obtain specific information. So this is the first part of the communicative role-taking test. So we show the first picture and the second, and we say, look at this picture, what is happening here? Look at the boy, what is the boy telling his father? And the participant actually have to say, can I go out to play, or something similar. The second test, this was the narrative task. So we show the participants 6 pictures, and they have to narrate the story. This is a telling story and not a retelling one. The third part, in the question asking part, so first of all, we show the first picture and we say, ask me the right question and I'll show you the answer. So actually an accurate question could be, who does ride a bike, or who is on the bike, or what is on the bike? And then we show the second picture. Now, turning to the results. And of course, it was not surprising that the typically developing individuals outperform the individual with ASD in the overall score, and the communicative role-taking part, the narration, and the forming question part. Within group comparisons have shown that the first part, the communicative role-taking, actually both groups did better compared to the other 2 tasks, the narration and the forming question task. Of course, you can see that actually the typically developing group scored at ceiling, while we have below chance scores at the ASD group. And if we'll delve into the answers of the ASD group, we see that in the communicative role-taking part, they use the wrong person, so they could say something I or you instead of the boy or someone else. They ask irrelevant questions, or they use affirmation instead of questions. So for instance, in the first picture that I show you, they say something, can I play some more? Which the target answer would be, can I go out for play, or something like that. In the narrative task, only 6 of ASD children mentioned the characters, and they did the discrimination between the 2 boys. It was an absence of temporal cohesion and of mental state representations. They gave really short stories, and they need some feedback, although they were high functioning. No linking words were there, or no use of determiners, or they actually avoid them, or they use the definite articles. In the question asking part, they did not give a response, or they gave an irrelevant question, such as where are you, where the picture was this one, where we expected to say who is on the bike or something like that. And now, in order to answer to our last question, we ran a correlation analysis conducted between different parts, and these analyses were separate for each group. So for the ASD group, no correlations were found between the 3 tasks, while in the TD group, we found correlation between all different abilities. So communicative role-taking correlate with narratives and questions, and narratives correlated with questions. To sum up and discuss our findings, so our first recent question was, do pragmatic abilities of high-functioning children with ASD and TD children differ? And the results have shown that children with ASD scored lower than TD, confirming the pragmatic deficit of the group. In addition, within group comparisons have shown that all pragmatic abilities were not equally demanding or impaired. And these, for instance, communicative role-taking found to be less impaired compared to narratives and question asking. And this shows us that there are deficits in some, but not at all, cognitive processes, which further support the weak cohesion central account. At least our findings, actually, we come to the second question, which is which account can better explain the deficits in high-functioning children with ASD. Tom was not fully supported since individuals with ASD performed well enough in the communicative role-taking task. The executive function deficit account was also not fully supported because they actually the individuals did not show difficulties across all sections of the task because all sections require planning and organization. And the findings from the role-taking task and the other two tasks indicate that individuals with ASD focus on specific details rather than the whole picture. And this, we think, that further verifies the multiple deficits account. And in respect to the last question, are pragmatic abilities related or separable in the two groups? Our findings indicate that the correlation analysis actually shows that there are a dissociation between pragmatic abilities, and these abilities are driven possibly by different mechanisms in children with and without ASD, which is similar to other findings from other impairments. And the absence of correlation between the different pragmatic abilities suggests that they may be differently impaired and are not certainly associated. To conclude, we think that these findings can show a way. Of course, further research is needed, so pragmatic abilities are not linked and impaired in the same way in individuals with ASD, and actually interventions can work towards this direction. And we think that they confirm the weak central cohesion account. Thank you.